Hello, Record Hunter here. Cheers. I know I'm a little late to the party, but today I am going to do the 2024 vinyl tag brought to you by Rob Walker. And he gave everybody in the vinyl community 20 questions to answer. And here, let me start off with my questions. First question is, what was your favorite purchase of 2023? So, on record store day, I went hunting for some records, three of them in particular, and I couldn't find any of them. So I was empty handed. And then a few weeks later, Reckless Records hits me up, and they found one of my records, the main record I was looking for. Macho Man Randy Savage, Be a Man. Oh yeah! I'm telling you, if you can't find the record you're looking for record store day, don't go online. Don't go like to eBay or Amazon and pay hundreds of dollars. I got this for $32, and I've seen it going for like $350 at that time. Just wait a little while, and eventually you'll run across your record. And this was really, really limited to 1,000 copies. So, okay, let's see. The next question is, what was the last purchase you had in 2023? So, I DJ on the radio, and my partner is DJ Lydia Vomito. We DJ a radio show called Release the Hounds. In the first hour, I spin metal. Second hour, she spins like metal and punk, industrial, goth, all different stuff. But she was doing a live set at Talia Hall, and in the bar, in the basement, they have a little section where they sell records for $3 a piece. And so I picked this up, Fog Hats, full for the city, for $3. Good deal. Okay, let's see. The next question would be two albums that came out the same year. Okay, AC/DC's High Voltage and AC/DC's TNT. These both came out in 1975. These are your first press Australian copies. And then the next year, in 76, they released Dirty Deeds. And they took these three albums and combined them into two albums and released them in the U.S. as High Voltage and Dirty Deeds in the U.S. press. Okay, let's see. The next question is, if you could listen to music only from one decade, what decade would it be? Well, for me, it would have to be the 80s because I grew up in the 80s. I was a teenager in the 80s, and at a young age, my whole life, I listened to music. My family listened to music. My parents listened to music. So, at 12 years old, I started listening to heavy metal. And heavy metal, one of the things, Ozzy Osbourne is from the 80s. And this is when he first went solo from Black Sabbath, which Black Sabbath is the band from the 70s that I would really miss out of if I had to lose that decade. It would be the 70s if it wasn't the 80s. But extreme metal, like Venom, black metal. I listened to thrash as a teenager. Hardcore punk, Minor Threat, 80s. The Go-Go's. I hung out to use the Go-Go's 4 times in my life, 3 times with Belinda Carlisle. One of my favorite 80s pop bands. And New Wave, man, Devo. So, and then there's also other great music that came out in the 80s, like death rock and goth and stuff. The 80s were probably definitely be the 80s if I could only listen to one decade of music. Next question is name a Manchester band from Manchester. Okay, if I had them, but I don't have any Smiths on vinyl, I would have showed the Smiths. And I do have some New Order, but I decided to go with like my favorite band from Manchester, and that would be the Buzzcocks. Okay, my next question is an artist you listened to the most in 2023. Well, I had to think about this because I listen to a lot of music, but I realized I listened to a lot of Pink Floyd, and this record in particular. I even did a video for this record of growing up with this album. It just hit its 50th anniversary, and even when I was a little kid, my parents couldn't find a babysitter, so the very first concert I ever went to was Pink Floyd Dark Side of the Moon tour. So, okay. Next question is, show 7 inches you bought in 2023 or 7 inches you own. Since I didn't buy, I only bought one 7 inch in 2023, but I'll show you these 7 inches. I got the Beatles. Misfits. Cough Cool. 1977 on Blank Records. Black Flag's Nervous Breakdown from 1978. It's a reissue, but it's like an 80s reissue. First press of Dead Kennedy's California Herberalis, 1979. Jello, met Jello, he signed it, and he drew these teeth on, right here on the girl, and said that was his ex-guitar player's 60-25's girlfriend. He said she was a monster, so he always draws teeth on him when he sees these records. Then I have this kind of pretty rare Monster Rock album. This is Tarantula Ghoul and her Gravediggers, and this is Graveyard Rock with King Kong. This is from 1958. It was limited to 100 copies. And I got this. This is pretty rare too. This is Davy Jones and the King Bees. This is from, I think, 1967. This is David Bowie's first 7-inch. And this is the only record I bought this year of 7-inch. I bought this year. It's by a band called Azeroth, and the name of the album is Satanus Asperitus. And it's from 1975, and it's like prototype doom metal. Okay, next question would be, who's coming to the party? Okay, well, the first record I don't have anything by. This artist, there's an artist named Billy Murray, and he was a artist from 1893 to, he performed from 1893 to 1943, and he recorded in 1897 till 1943. And so I would find him interesting, being the first famous recording artist from that era. And I would like to talk to him to just tell me how was being one of the first people to ever record anything, and how it was being a musician for the 4 decades and how things changed. That would be someone that I would really love to meet for this fictional party of 4 people. You could invite anybody you want. The next one would be Jinx Dawson, which I've met her before, but I would like to talk to her about growing up in the Chicago scene, and how she recorded the first occult record, Coven, the first person to do the heavy metal signs, and even have a song on here called Black Sabbath, and this record came out before Black Sabbath. It's from 1969, and I'd just like to ask her about how what made the world change, where all these people were into Satanism, and all the horror movies became really dark. They got out of the monsters and just went into just darker, doomier, and where doom metal started, like Black Sabbath and Coven. I'd like to ask her about what was going on at that time in the very late 60s and early 70s. And also the Chicago scene, because I'm from Chicago, and Coven's from Chicago. I'll also like to meet Bobby Boris Pickett. I would have liked to have met him, and to ask him about monster rock, something I coined monster rock, but it's just the novelty monster songs of the 50s and 60s. I'd like to ask him about about that, if there was any actual scene, or was it just novelty records. Really curious about that. And last would be Lemmy from Motorhead. If he was alive and I could invite him to a party, I'd love to talk to him about his time at Hawkwind, and him being a roadie for Jimi Hendrix. I'd like to hear some of those stories, and just about how he started Motorhead and where he fit in, where he felt he fit in, because they're he falls under heavy metal, he falls under punk. He even played bass for The Damned for a little while. They were playing with punk and metal bands in the late 70s there. I'd just like to find out, how that was at that time, too. I'm really big into history, and I'm really big into music, so if I could tie this all together, it'd be pretty cool, interesting stuff to talk about. Okay, let's see. The next question would be someone you lost. Somebody we lost in 2023. Musician-wise, well, we lost Jeff Beck and David Crosby and Tina Turner, and Tony Bennett, very big names. But I'm going to go with one of Chicago's very own, John Kinsey of the Effigies. He died in a car accident. He was on a bicycle, and I'm not sure if he got hit or he hit the car. But either way, we really lost a Chicago punk icon and somebody who was very important to the Chicago punk scene, especially for me and a lot of people who were in the Chicago punk rock. And I was fortunate enough for my band Spare Change to play with them once. Okay, let's see. The next question would be music from one country. If you could only pick music from one country, what would you listen to? Oh, this one was a bit of a tough one because there's so many great bands from the UK and so many great bands from the United States. And there's some good bands from all over the world in Canada, but I really had to bring it down to United States or UK. And I'm going to have to go to the United States because Metallica, one of my favorite bands of all time, my top 5 favorite bands. I couldn't not listen to Ride the Lightning ever again. My favorite album of all time is Slayer's Rain and Blood from the United States, and and then just stuff like Dio, early heavy metal. That's I said, that's hard because England has Judas Priest and Iron Maiden and Black Sabbath and just the Beatles and the Rolling Stones and the Who, and just a lot of great bands from England. That was a tough question. Let's see. Okay, let me. Where are we at here? Okay, name three VC channels that you discovered in 2023. Okay, there's a guy named Sean Spins who has 275 subscribers. I enjoyed his channel a bit. I really enjoyed Midlife Crisis Rants. He plays just he's an older guy, probably around my age, and he plays all punk, and he shows all kinds of punk rock stuff I've never seen before. Pretty good channel. He has 335 subscribers as of this point, and then Ron Haggerty's Vinyl Sanctuary is now no more, but he has another channel called Ron Haggerty's Vinyl Custodian. He has 75 subscribers, but he's been part of the VC for, I guess, a while. I discovered him on his other channel. He seems like a pretty good guy who likes heavy metal. So He seems like down to earth guy. I enjoyed his channel. Okay, a record you bought as a teenager. Okay, well, the majority of the records I bought, a good chunk, not the majority, a good chunk of the records I bought were when I was a teenager. A lot of punk and a lot of metal, especially. But here's one of my punk records I bought probably when I was like 15, maybe 16 years old. Here's Angry Samoans, Back from Samoa. Okay, let's see. Show a soul or funk album. Okay, this band is pretty cool. At least this first album is. This is Shotgun from 1976. They're heavy funk. They're like on the same lines of like Parliament Funkadelic, except there's some like kind of heavy guitar in it. It's pretty good. Like stuff you'd see. They're just a really good heavy funk band. This album, and then the next album, they think they did 3 more records after that, but the label started pushing them to disco, and you could totally tell. Like, there's a couple good songs on the second album, but it sounds like disco, and then the next 2 albums sound like disco, but it's not very good disco. And it's a damn shame that they just didn't stay in this direction and just put out records like this. Okay, says show a record everybody has, and then show a record that nobody has. Okay. Michael Jackson's Thriller. They have sold so many of this record, so many copies of this record has been sold. This seems to be in like everyone's collection. You can have like a total death metal collection, but you have I have nothing but death metal. And it's 99.9%, and then somehow your parents or your brother or your sister's record wound up in your collection. It seems like everybody in the world had this Michael Jackson's Thriller album. So, and it's a good album actually. I really like this album a lot. So, okay, and then show a record that nobody has. Okay, I'm going to show you this. This is something I don't even have. This is Screeching Weasel split with Ozfish Experience. And what do I mean? I don't have it. I'm showing it to you right here. I have the sleeve. There were only 2 copies of this record made. What happened was they pressed the record in 1987, and they were sent 2 test pressings. And Screeching Weasel, Johnny Jughead of Screeching Weasel got 1 copy, and Warren from Ozfish Experience got a copy. And then I'm not sure if I heard the place went out of business, but also I heard that the pressing plant burned down, so I'm not sure which it is. But all I know is there's only 2 copies of this record, and the reason I have a sleeve, a friend actually gave this to me, but I had Warren look at it, and he said, yeah, this is a real. It's a real sleeve. What they did was they had a real sleeve. Is that they made 50 copies of the sleeve and had a release party, and they were waiting for the record because they were already supposed to have the record, but they had the release show anyways, and anybody who showed up got a sleeve. And then they were supposed to get the records, or anybody who bought them, and records never came through. So they're telling me they spent like over $1,000 for 2 records. So, all right, the next question will be, okay, she's great. Like the female artist you bought this year, that sorry about that, I'm getting a little dry here. A record you bought by a female artist that you really liked. Unfortunately, I didn't buy too many records this year, and I bought no records from a female artist. But I did see a female punk band called Vital, Vial, and they're from Minnesota, Minneapolis, and they were great. I went to the table to see if they had anything for sale, and they had no they only had shirts, and so like and they don't have records out yet. So like here's a band to check out if they come through. All three of them sing. So like some stuff sounds like L7, some stuff sounds like Vice Squad. It's really really great band, and I hope that they continue, and I hope they put some vinyl out because I'd love to get some vinyl. Okay, favorite video made. What's the favorite video I made? I have to ask this guy right here. Hey, buddy, remember we did a video together? Yeah, I remember doing a video. It was pretty cool. Oh yeah, what was the video called? Albums that do cool stuff. Oh yeah, you should check out album covers that do cool stuff. Yeah, and you're the first the first album cover, right? Yeah, it was pretty cool. I'm the first one on the things that are the albums do that are cool. Okay, so yeah, this is Faces. This is Rod Stewart and Ronnie Woods before before Ronnie Woods went to the Rolling Stones, and Rod Stewart went solo. Good album. Um, the records I showed were like just things they could do things like some had like board games on it, some like had pop-ups like I mean you could like open up the cover and things would pop out, and it was pretty cool. Like if you get a chance to go back and check out my videos, I really enjoyed making that video. That was my favorite. And then the next question is, or second part of this question is, what's my favorite video I saw online? I say Robert Fiffin. Anything Robert Fiffin does is pretty funny. I also enjoy Ryan Kidd stuff and Vinyl Richie. Anytime I watch those, of all the VC stuff, I watch that stuff like religiously. More so now on the Roku, or watching my YouTube on the Roku. But I try to go on my phone and then like their and communicate with them a little bit on the phone after that. But it's much better watching the videos on TV than on the phone. Okay, let's see. 90s classic. Show a 90s classic. I think you can't get much more classic for the 90s than Nirvana's Nevermind. I'm really surprised nobody showed this yet. I still seen a couple of people show like the MTV, but I meant this is like the thing that changed music at that time. It just kind of like killed hair metal, and yeah, it created grunge, and then there was a whole years of grunge until Kurt Cobain died, and then Green Day started pop punk, and pop punk brought back punk, and it was just. But that's kind of like what started the '90s genre, or like the grunge and the movement and rock in the '90s. Okay, um, if I could walk into an album cover, what would it be? Okay, this was the toughest question for me. This is why I didn't make this video for like 2 weeks, because I had a hard time figuring out what album cover would I walk into. And I gotta go with Iron Maiden, Somewhere in Time. Look at the back of this cover. This I used to stare at this cover when I was like, I don't remember, I was 15, I think. When this came out, and I would just like stare at this like and just listen to it like over and over, and imagine like to be in this like world with Eddie and Iron Maiden. I would just love to walk into this album cover. This is definitely the one. Okay. The next question is a album that feels like a greatest hits. To me, or just I say this just feels like a greatest hits just in general. I think every song on this album was a hit. At least every song on this album was played on the radio. And it would be Boston's first record from 1976. I just throw the album on. It's just like every single song on here is Smoking, feels like the first time. It's just it, every song, every song on this record was played on classic rock radio. Okay, now the last question is an album that turns 50 this year, a record from 1974. Okay, this is crazy because this is even hard to concept in my head that this record is turning 50 years old, and I've been listening to it my whole life, and it just doesn't seem like it's that old, but it's that old. Judas Priest, Rock-a-Rolla. Well, that's the end of my video. Hope you enjoyed it. It's the vinyl tag of 2024. And thank you for watching, and cheers, everyone. And I'll see you in the next video. Have a good one. Wait until the hunt is on. Cheers.